Are the Cleveland Browns secretly sabotaging their own future? That's the question rocking the NFL world right now after Hall of Famer Shannon Sharpe dropped a revelation so explosive, fans and insiders alike are still trying to process what it means. And if what Shannon is saying is true, then this isn't just about football decisions or depth chart strategy. This is about ego, fear, and an organization so insecure in its choices that it would rather bury its own young quarterback than risk being proven wrong. The name at the center of it all? Shedeur Sanders. The son of NFL legend Deion "Primetime" Sanders, and one of the most talked about young quarterbacks entering the league in years. He has the poise, the arm, the confidence, and the presence that screams franchise quarterback. But instead of nurturing that talent, instead of investing in his growth, the Browns may be orchestrating one of the most shocking cases of sabotage we've ever seen in the NFL. It started with something small, something most people wouldn't even notice. After Shedeur's very first preseason performance, a game where he looked sharp, poised, and ready, head coach Kevin Stefanski's reaction wasn't what you'd expect. There was no excitement, no public support, no words of encouragement for the rookie who had just exceeded expectations. Instead, Stefanski brushed it off with the kind of cold detachment that raised eyebrows. Shannon Sharpe noticed it immediately, and he wasn't afraid to call it out. "It's almost as if he doesn't want Shedeur to do well," Shannon said. A statement that sounded harsh at first, until the events that followed made it impossible to ignore. Because what came next didn't look like coincidence, it looked like a setup, it looked like an agenda. And it left fans wondering if Shedeur was being judged fairly at all, or if the deck had been stacked against him from the very beginning. Think about it. When you draft a young quarterback, especially one with the pedigree and potential of Shedeur Sanders, you usually do everything in your power to evaluate him properly. You give him reps with the starters. You put him in real game situations that mimic what he'll face in the regular season. You want to see how he responds to pressure, to opportunity, to the spotlight. But instead of doing that, the Browns did the opposite. They threw Shedeur into the fire with teammates who were about to be cut the very next day. Players who weren't even going to be in the building by the time the season started. And when the moment came to test him in the ultimate pressure scenario, the 2-minute drill, the Browns didn't even let him touch the field. They gave that chance to another quarterback, one who wasn't part of the future, one who would soon be gone entirely. That's not evaluation, that's not development, that's something else entirely. Shannon Sharpe saw it for what it was. Intentional sabotage. And the more you peel back the layers, sometimes the biggest clues don't come from the obvious moments. They come from the subtle reactions, the small details, the things people don't say. And in the case of Kevin Stefanski, his reaction to Shedeur Sanders' first preseason performance might be the most telling sign of all. Picture this. You're a head coach in the NFL. Your rookie quarterback, a 5th-round pick that most of the media doubted, steps onto the field for the very first time. He's calm in the pocket, making smart reads, zipping passes into tight windows, and showing the kind of poise you usually don't see from someone who just got there. For most coaches, this is the dream scenario. It's validation. It's hope. It's a reason to smile, praise the kid publicly, and send a message to the locker room. We may have found something special here. But that's not what Kevin Stefanski did. Instead, when reporters asked about Shedeur's performance, Stefanski's tone was flat, detached, almost dismissive. No excitement, no encouragement, no sense of pride. Just a bland, "We'll see what happens next." That was it. No, he exceeded expectations. No, I'm proud of the way he handled himself. Nothing. Now, some people might brush that off as just Stefanski's personality. Maybe he's the type who doesn't hand out compliments easily. But that's not how it works in the NFL. Coaches know that words matter. Publicly backing your young quarterback can boost his confidence, silence critics, and energize the fan base. Refusing to do it sends the opposite message. We don't believe in you. And Shannon Sharpe wasn't about to let that slide. On his show, he called it exactly how he saw it. It's almost as if he doesn't want Shedeur to do well. Think about how powerful that statement is. For a Hall of Famer, a respected voice in sports media, to suggest that an NFL head coach might actively not want his rookie quarterback to succeed, that's not a throwaway comment. That's a warning shot. The strangest part is how consistent Stefanski's behavior was. This wasn't a one-time slip. Even after Shedeur showed flashes of talent, the coach never went out of his way to highlight it. No celebratory quotes, no enthusiastic breakdowns of his progress. Just cold, calculated indifference. And that indifference raises a bigger question. Why? Why would a coach downplay a rookie's success instead of leaning into it? Why avoid building positive momentum? Unless, of course, there was an agenda. Unless the organization never wanted Shedeur in the first place, and every sign of progress became a threat instead of a victory. Because here's the truth. When a coach sees a rookie shining and instead of celebrating, he acts bothered by it, that's not normal. That's a red flag. And it was only the beginning of what Shannon Sharpe believes is a much darker plan unfolding in Cleveland. If Kevin Stefanski's cold reactions after Shedeur's debut raised eyebrows, what happened next practically screamed sabotage. Preseason football may not count in the record books, but for young players, it's everything. It's the one stage where coaches can truly test their rookies, surround them with talent, and see how they handle real NFL speed. For quarterbacks, it's the closest thing to a job interview you'll ever get. And when you have a prospect like Shedeur Sanders, son of Dion, fifth-round pick with a chip on his shoulder, you'd think the Browns would want to see exactly what they had. But instead of setting him up for a fair evaluation, they threw him into a situation designed to fail. Here's how it went down. Joe Flacco, a 38-year-old veteran everyone already knows inside and out, was given the start. Why? What new information could possibly be learned from another Flacco outing? Shannon Sharpe pointed it out bluntly. We already know what Flacco can do. The preseason isn't about Joe Flacco, it's about the future. And yet, the Browns acted as if keeping Flacco sharp was more important than giving their rookie a real chance. And when Shedeur finally got on the field, the deck was stacked against him from the very first snap. Instead of playing with the starting offensive line or skill players, the guys he'd actually be working with if he ever became the starter, Shedeur was surrounded by practice squad-level teammates. Receivers who couldn't create separation, linemen who couldn't hold a block, running backs who'd be cut within 24 hours. In other words, he was being asked to showcase his ability while surrounded by players who wouldn't even be in the league by Monday morning. As Shannon's guest, TJ put it perfectly. He went into a gunfight with two knives. That's not evaluation, that's entrapment. No rookie quarterback, no matter how talented, can look impressive when his protection collapses instantly and his receivers can't get open. And when Shedeur's stat line looked ordinary, the coaches could shrug and say, "See? He's not ready." But the truth is, he was never given a fighting chance to begin with. Think about the optics. If Shedeur had been given first-team reps and looked great, the fans would have been buzzing. Media headlines would have questioned why he wasn't starting. A controversy would have been born. By surrounding him with players destined for the waiver wire, the Browns guaranteed he couldn't create that kind of momentum. They controlled the narrative before it could even begin. And this wasn't just bad luck or careless rotation. This felt deliberate, calculated. The Browns had the perfect opportunity to test their rookie, to see him under real conditions, to give him a chance to grow. Instead, they engineered a scenario where failure was almost certain, and when Shannon saw it, he knew exactly what was going on. But the most blatant example of sabotage hadn't even happened yet. That came later in the 2-minute drill, and what the Browns decided in that moment left Shannon Sharpe absolutely stunned. Preseason games are supposed to be about opportunity. They don't count in the standings, but for young players, they mean everything. It's where undrafted rookies fight for a roster spot, where late-round picks prove they belong, and where coaches finally get to see whether their future quarterback can handle the pressure of NFL speed. If you're building a team the right way, the preseason isn't just filler, it's a glimpse of tomorrow. But when it came to Shedeur Sanders, the Browns treated it like something else entirely. Instead of using the preseason to evaluate their fifth-round investment, they created the kind of situation that looked less like development and more like sabotage. It started with a baffling decision, giving Joe Flacco the start. Now, no disrespect to Flacco, he's a Super Bowl champion, a veteran who's been around the league for over a decade, but at this point, everybody knows what he is. He's steady, experienced, and limited. He's not the future, he's not the long-term answer. He's a stopgap, so why take away valuable reps from a rookie who actually needs them? Shannon Sharpe asked the obvious question, why is Flacco starting this game? We already know what he can do. And he was right. But the real insult came when Shedeur finally got on the field. Instead of being surrounded by the starters or even solid rotation players, he was tossed in with teammates who wouldn't even make the roster. Offensive linemen who couldn't hold their blocks, wide receivers who struggled to separate, running backs who were gone the very next morning. In other words, he wasn't given an offense, he was given scraps. Imagine being asked to showcase your ability under those circumstances. Every snap collapsing before you can finish your drop. Every throw forced into tight windows because no one's getting open. It's not football, it's a setup. As Shannon's guest, TJ put it perfectly. He went into a gunfight with 2 knives. That's not a test, that's a trap. And here's the part that really makes you think. The Browns had options. They could have let Shedeur split time with Dillon Gabriel against real competition. They could have rotated him with second stringers who actually had a chance of sticking around, but they didn't. They made a choice to put him in a situation where looking good was nearly impossible. Now, why would a coaching staff do that? Why would they take their rookie quarterback, the one player who could change the future of their franchise, and surround him with failure? The answer is uncomfortable, but it's the one Shannon Sharpe kept circling back to: fear. Fear of what might happen if Shedeur actually looked great. Fear of fans chanting his name. Fear of a controversy they weren't prepared to handle. Because here's the truth. If Shedeur had been given first-team reps and marched down the field, the headlines would have written themselves. The fans would have demanded answers. Why isn't this kid starting? And that's exactly what the Browns didn't want. But the most shocking decision, the one that made even Shannon shake his head in disbelief, hadn't happened yet. That came during the most critical test of all. The 2-minute drill. And what the Browns chose to do in that moment revealed everything. The preseason is supposed to be the great equalizer. It's where veterans shake off the rust, but more importantly, it's where young players finally get their shot. For late-round quarterbacks like Shedeur Sanders, those exhibition games aren't meaningless. They're a lifeline. Every snap is a chance to prove that you're more than a draft pick, that you belong in this league. It's when the door opens, even just a crack, and a hungry rookie can kick it wide open. But when Shedeur stepped onto the field for the Browns, it didn't look like opportunity. It looked like a setup. Instead of giving him meaningful reps, the Browns chose to start Joe Flacco. Think about that. Flacco is 38 years old, a known commodity with over a decade of tape. Nobody in Cleveland or anywhere else is wondering what Joe Flacco can do. His ceiling and his floor are already carved in stone. Yet somehow, he was the one opening the game, eating up valuable drives that could have been used to evaluate the young guy they just drafted. And when Shedeur finally got his turn, the deck was stacked against him. Rather than letting him take the field with the starting offensive line or reliable playmakers, he was surrounded by a group of players who were literally fighting for their own football lives. Many of them were cut within 24 hours. They weren't in rhythm, they weren't polished, and they weren't going to be around once the real season started. Shannon Sharpe described it with a line that said it all. He went into a gunfight with 2 knives. That's exactly what it was. No rookie quarterback could have looked polished with that kind of supporting cast. His protection broke down before plays could even develop. His receivers struggled to separate, forcing him to thread impossible throws. He wasn't being evaluated, he was being handicapped. And here's where it gets even more questionable. The Browns could have easily rotated Shedeur with Dillon Gabriel, another young quarterback on the roster, giving both a chance to show what they could do with equal footing. They could have put him behind the second-string line, with players who at least had a shot at sticking around. Instead, they placed him with the very bottom of the roster players already marked for cuts. That's not development, that's dismissal. Why? Why would a team invest a draft pick in a quarterback and then deliberately limit his ability to shine? Shannon and his guest laid it out plainly. They didn't want controversy, because if Shedeur had gone out there, lit up the defense, and looked like the best quarterback on the roster, the fans would have demanded answers. The media would have started asking hard questions. Suddenly, the safe plan of riding with veterans like Flacco wouldn't look so safe. So instead of risking that, they controlled the narrative. They engineered failure. And while the stat sheet might make it look like Shedeur had a quiet game, anyone watching closely could see what was really happening. But the clearest proof that this wasn't just bad luck came in the next moment, the 2-minute drill. That's where the mask slipped, and the Browns' intentions became impossible to deny. If the strange preseason setup raised suspicions, what happened next confirmed them. Because there's one moment in every preseason game that truly reveals whether a young quarterback has it, the 2-minute drill. It's high pressure, fast-paced, and unforgiving. Coaches live for this scenario because it shows everything: decision-making, composure, accuracy, and leadership. For a rookie, it's the ultimate proving ground. And on that night, with time winding down and the Browns needing a drive, it should have been Shedeur Sanders' moment. He was the rookie trying to earn trust, the quarterback who needed real reps under pressure. It was his chance to show the fans and the coaching staff how he handled chaos. Instead, they gave the opportunity to Tyler Huntley, a quarterback who wasn't even going to make the team. Let that sink in. A crucial 2-minute drill, the perfect chance to see what your young draft pick can do, and the Browns handed it to a player who was gone a few days later. Shannon Sharpe couldn't believe it. He practically exploded. Why are you giving a guy who's about to be cut those snaps instead of your rookie? It wasn't just questionable, it was insulting. Think about what that decision really meant. If Huntley led the drive, it wouldn't matter he wasn't part of the future. But if Shedeur got that chance, marched his team down the field, and scored, the conversation in Cleveland would have changed overnight. Fans would have started asking whether he deserved to be the starter. The local media would have been buzzing about the rookie who looks ready. The pressure on Stefanski and the front office would have been enormous, and that's exactly what they didn't want. By keeping Shedeur off the field, they didn't just deny him a learning experience, they denied him the chance to seize the spotlight. They took away the one scenario that could have instantly shifted the narrative in his favor. That's not caution, that's control. And Shannon knew it. He pointed out the obvious. The Browns weren't interested in evaluating their rookie. They were interested in protecting themselves, protecting Flacco, protecting their own decisions from being questioned. They were so afraid of controversy that they sabotaged their own opportunity to see what their draft pick could really do. It's a pattern that runs deeper than just coaching decisions. In football, actions speak louder than words. And every action the Browns took in that game screamed one thing. They didn't want Shedeur Sanders to shine. This wasn't about development. This wasn't about rotation. This was about fear. Pure, unfiltered fear of what would happen if a rookie quarterback embarrassed the veterans and made the organization look wrong. And that's why the 2-minute drill controversy became the smoking gun. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. And it left Shannon Sharpe and fans across the league asking a chilling question. If they're willing to sabotage him in the preseason, what else are they hiding? Behind every strange decision in professional sports, there's usually a bigger force pulling the strings. Coaches may take the heat on the sidelines, but in reality, the most powerful voices often come from upstairs, the ownership box. And when it comes to the Cleveland Browns, whispers around the league have long suggested that ownership doesn't just watch games, they influence them. Shannon Sharpe touched on this directly, and it hit like a thunderclap. What if Kevin Stefanski wasn't acting alone? What if the orders to sideline Shedeur Sanders came from even higher up? Because let's be honest, the patterns don't add up. A coach as experienced as Stefanski knows the value of giving a rookie quarterback meaningful reps. He knows you don't evaluate a draft pick by throwing him behind third-string linemen and then yanking him before the most crucial drive. That's not football logic. That's politics. And politics in football usually means ownership interference. The Browns ownership group has a history of being heavily involved in day-to-day football decisions, more than most teams are comfortable admitting. Former staffers have hinted at it, reporters have speculated on it, and the results often show it. When the people signing the checks get nervous about public perception, they act to protect their investments, not necessarily to win games. Think about the risk they saw in Shedeur, a young, fiery quarterback with a massive following, a social media presence, and the kind of name recognition that could overshadow the team's veterans overnight. Ownership knows the Browns fan base is hungry for a star, and they know how quickly a narrative can spiral out of control. If Shedeur had looked electric in that preseason game, the pressure would have shifted instantly. Tickets, headlines, fan campaigns, all demanding that the rookie take over. For ownership, that meant chaos. So what's the safest move from their perspective? Keep things steady. Keep the veterans in control. Make sure Shedeur doesn't get too much spotlight too soon. In other words, play it safe, even if it means sabotaging their own rookie's development. Shannon framed it bluntly. This wasn't just coaching strategy. It smelled like orders from the top, and when orders come from ownership, there's no arguing. Coaches fall in line, even if it means going against basic football sense. That's how organizations operate when fear of narrative outweighs faith in talent. And it gets darker. Because if ownership truly dictated Shedeur's role that night, it suggests a long-term plan, one that might not even include him as a serious option. Why waste a draft pick just to bury him? Why keep him on the roster if you're never going to give him a real shot? For Shannon, the answer was chilling. Sometimes teams draft players not to develop them, but to control them, to keep them from landing somewhere else. where they might actually shine. In that light, Shedeur's preseason wasn't just an uphill battle, it was a carefully managed storyline designed in the shadows of ownership's influence. And if that's true, then the Browns weren't just protecting Flacco, they were protecting themselves. If there's one thing NFL organizations hate more than losing, it's controversy, and in Cleveland, the front office seemed terrified of it. That fear explained so much of what happened with Shedeur Sanders, because every decision the Browns made felt less about football and more about managing perception. From the outside, it might sound strange. Why would a team be scared of giving a rookie quarterback a chance to shine? Isn't that what every fan wants? Hope, potential, excitement? But that's exactly the problem. If Shedeur looked too good, too fast, it would have created a storm the Browns weren't ready to face. Imagine it. A rookie drafted in the 5th round suddenly lights up preseason highlights. The fans go wild. The media starts asking if he should leapfrog veterans. Local talk shows can't stop bringing up his name. Before long, every mistake from Joe Flacco, every slow start, every interception would have been followed by chants of "We want Shedeur," echoing through Cleveland Browns Stadium. And that's the nightmare scenario for an organization desperate to appear stable. Shannon Sharpe called it for what it was. The Browns didn't want that noise. They didn't want to deal with a divided locker room, a split fan base, or relentless questions from the press. Once that conversation starts, it's almost impossible to shut down. The safer play, at least in their eyes, was to cut it off before it began. And the way you do that? You bury the rookie before he has a chance to make headlines. But here's the irony. By trying to avoid controversy, the Browns only created more of it. Fans aren't blind. They noticed when Shedeur wasn't given fair reps. They noticed when Stefanski's praise for him felt forced, flat, or non-existent. They noticed when Tyler Huntley, a player on his way out the door, got the 2-minute drill instead. To the public, it didn't look like caution. It looked like sabotage. And once that seed of suspicion is planted, it grows fast. Fan bases today are louder and more connected than ever. Social media clips go viral within minutes. A single eyebrow-raising coaching decision can spark thousands of comments, debates, and conspiracy theories. By holding Shedeur back, the Browns thought they were keeping things quiet. Instead, they set off alarms, the exact alarms Shannon Sharpe amplified to a national audience. Because here's the truth. Controversy in sports is unavoidable. You can't hide from it. You either face it head-on or let it fester in the shadows. The Browns chose the shadows, and it backfired. What they feared most, pressure from fans and media, is now louder than ever. Instead of preventing a quarterback controversy, they fueled one. Instead of silencing questions, they created 1,000 new ones. And in doing so, they didn't just hurt their rookie, they hurt their own credibility. For Shannon, this wasn't just about one preseason game. It was a lesson in how fear can cripple an organization. And in Cleveland, that fear might cost them far more than they realize. Amid all the speculation, the strange coaching decisions, and the whispers of ownership interference, one thing stood out most about Shedeur Sanders: his maturity. For a young quarterback stepping into one of the toughest environments in football, he showed a level of composure that not only silenced doubters but also revealed why so many fans believe he deserves more than what he's been given. It would have been easy for Shedeur to complain. After all, most rookies would have bristled at being sidelined during crucial preseason reps or being overshadowed by veterans who already had their chance in the league. Instead, Shedeur kept his focus on the work. He didn't storm to the media, he didn't post cryptic social media messages, and he didn't point fingers. That level of patience in the middle of a storm is rare, and it speaks volumes about his character. Shannon Sharpe highlighted this exact point. He reminded viewers that maturity isn't just about how you play on the field, it's about how you handle the moments when things don't go your way. Shedeur's reaction wasn't to sulk or to lash out, but to control what he could: his effort, his preparation, and his attitude. For a rookie trying to carve out space in the NFL, that kind of self-control can be the difference between lasting in the league and fading out quickly. And when you look deeper, it makes sense. Shedeur comes from a football family. His father, Deion Sanders, is a living legend who has faced every form of pressure imaginable, from the spotlight of NFL Sundays to the relentless critics that come with being a cultural icon. Growing up in that shadow could have broken someone weaker, but instead, Shedeur absorbed the lessons: how to handle pressure, how to carry yourself, and how to let your play do the talking. On the field, you could see that maturity in flashes. even when surrounded by third-string linemen, even when the odds were stacked against him, Shedeur didn't panic. He kept his mechanics sharp, his reads deliberate, and his composure steady. For a young quarterback, that's not normal. Most rookies crack under that kind of heat. Shedeur didn't. He showed poise, the one trait every coach claims to value above all else. And here's the twist. That maturity may have been part of the threat. Because a calm, composed rookie doesn't just disappear into the background. He earns respect, both in the locker room and among fans. And when teammates start to see that quiet confidence, they start to believe. That's when the narrative shifts, and that's exactly what Cleveland seemed desperate to prevent. But for Shannon Sharpe, the bigger picture was clear. The Browns might be able to limit Shedeur's reps, but they can't control his character. That kind of maturity is unteachable, and it doesn't fade. Whether in Cleveland or somewhere else, Shedeur Sanders showed he has the mindset to weather storms and outlast the politics. And in the NFL, sometimes that's the trait that truly defines greatness. Strip away the politics, the play calling, and the preseason excuses, and what you find at the center of this controversy is something much bigger than X's and O's. The real reason Shedeur Sanders became such a threat to the Browns' carefully crafted system boils down to two things: his confidence and his legacy. From day one, Shedeur carried himself differently. He wasn't the wide-eyed rookie just happy to be in an NFL locker room. He walked in like he belonged there. His body language, his interviews, even the way he handled huddles at all, gave off the energy of someone who wasn't waiting for permission to succeed. And for some organizations, that kind of confidence can feel intimidating, especially when it comes from a fifth-round pick. Coaches love to preach about earning it, but what they rarely admit is how uncomfortable they get when a young player starts earning respect too quickly. For Cleveland, Shedeur's presence threatened to accelerate the timeline. He wasn't supposed to be the story. He wasn't supposed to carry himself like a starter in waiting. Yet every time he stepped on the field, he had the poise and assurance of a quarterback who saw the bigger picture. And that's where his legacy comes into play. Shedeur isn't just another rookie. He's the son of Deion Sanders' primetime himself, a name that still echoes across football decades later. That connection matters. Whether people admit it or not, the moment Shedeur puts on a uniform, he's not just representing himself. He's carrying a legacy that demands attention. Every highlight, every throw, every interview isn't just about Shedeur. It's about the Sanders name. For a team like the Browns, who've spent years trying to escape dysfunction and forge their own identity, that can feel like a problem. Imagine being part of an organization that wants to control the story, only to have a rookie quarterback step in with a built-in brand bigger than the franchise itself. That's what Shedeur brought with him, confidence paired with a legacy powerful enough to shift the narrative overnight. And here's where Shannon Sharpe connected the dots. He argued that the Browns weren't just worried about preseason reps, they were worried about the symbolism. If Shedeur played well, if fans rallied behind him, if the Sanders legacy started overshadowing the Browns' identity, it would spark a tidal wave the front office couldn't contain. In their eyes, it wasn't just about football. It was about power, control, and protecting the fragile image they've worked so hard to rebuild. But what they didn't anticipate was how obvious it would all look from the outside. Fans could see the fear in how Shedeur was used. Analysts could sense the hesitation. And Shannon, never one to bite his tongue, exposed it for exactly what it was, a team more worried about protecting its own reputation than letting talent speak for itself. Because the truth is, simple confidence and legacy can't be benched forever, and in the long run, that combination might be the very thing that ensures Shedeur Sanders' story outlasts Cleveland's attempts to control it. When the dust settles on this whole preseason drama, one question lingers louder than the rest. What does the future hold for Shedeur Sanders? Because while the Browns may have tried to limit his spotlight, they couldn't hide the flashes of talent, the maturity under pressure, or the presence that made him impossible to ignore. Shedeur's path forward looks less like a straight line and more like a storm waiting to break. If Cleveland continues to hold him back, the noise around the situation will only grow louder. Fans already sense the tension. Analysts already see the politics. And as more people start to believe he deserves a real shot, the pressure won't just rest on Shedeur's shoulders, it'll rest on the Browns' ability to justify why they're keeping him on the sidelines. But here's the thing about the NFL. Talent always finds a way to surface. Teams can delay it, they can shuffle depth charts, they can even try to bury a player with excuses. But eventually, performance speaks louder than politics. Shedeur's composure, confidence, and flashes of brilliance are exactly the traits that separate long-term starters from forgotten backups. And if the Browns don't give him that chance, another team certainly will. That's where the future gets interesting. The Sanders legacy doesn't just fade quietly. Dion proved that with his larger-than-life career. Now Shedeur has the opportunity to carve his own path, not by living in his father's shadow, but by taking the lessons he's learned and writing a new chapter. He doesn't need to be primetime too. He needs to be Shedeur Sanders, the calm, composed quarterback who earned his place against every odd. For Shannon Sharpe, the controversy was never just about one preseason game. It was about the bigger picture, the fear that an organization had of letting confidence and legacy thrive in the open. And that's exactly why Shedeur's story feels far from over. The NFL is a league built on narratives, and right now, his is one of the most intriguing. Imagine this. A rookie many wrote off as unproven, quietly proving them wrong not with drama or excuses, but with maturity and steady growth. A quarterback who handled adversity with grace, then turned that patience into opportunity. That's the kind of story that sticks with fans. That's the kind of story that turns a young player into a movement. So where does it all go from here? If Shedeur gets his chance in Cleveland, he has the tools to flip the script entirely. If not, his future may lie with another franchise bold enough to embrace both his talent and the weight of his last name. Either way, the one thing that's clear is this: Shedeur Sanders isn't going away. His story is just beginning, and the league might want to brace itself for the storm he's about to bring. If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.